Chelsea have a striker problem. And for once, it's actually a good problem to have. There's João Pedro, there's Nicolas Jackson, there's Delap, there's Emmanuel Emegha, there's Welbeck. And there are 5 different strikers with all completely different profiles. And at some point, Xabi Alonso is going to have to answer the one very important question. Who actually starts for Chelsea? Because Chelsea aren't going to keep all 5 of them happy. I definitely aren't going to give all 5 of them minutes. So today, we're going to break down every Chelsea striker and what they bring and what they don't actually bring too. And most importantly, who I feel is going to start for Chelsea. Let's go. Let's start with the obvious one, João Pedro. And honestly, João Pedro might be the most interesting striker in this entire group because he's not just a traditional number 9. He's not necessarily the guy you want standing between 2 centre-backs waiting for a cross. João Pedro likes to come alive between the lines. He can drop deep, he can combine, he can carry the ball, he can create, and most importantly, he can actually score. And also, he can actually head the ball. That's what exactly makes him very valuable to us. You aren't just playing João Pedro to finish attacks. You're playing him because he can actually help the team. And that's incredible. And that's incredibly important for Chelsea. Because if Chelsea want to dominate possession, manipulate defensive blocks, and create overloads around the box, João Pedro actually makes that possible. But there's something very interesting. Sometimes you want a striker to be simply a striker. Stay high, occupy centre backs, attack the 6-yard box. But João Pedro isn't always going to be that player. He can do it, but he's not going to always be that player. And that brings us to Nicolas Jackson, the striker Chelsea fans have probably spent the most time arguing about. Because Jackson has something that almost every striker on this list doesn't have: raw explosiveness. When Jackson gets space, he's terrifying. He can run it behind, he can stretch defense, he will press intensely, and when he is confident, he can be actually devastating. But we know the other side of the story: the finishing, the decision making, the inconsistency, the lack of discipline. There are moments where Jackson looks like a striker that is capable of scoring 25 goals. And then there are moments where you find yourself screaming at the television, wondering how he even missed that chance. But here's the thing. I don't think Chelsea should simply throw Jackson away because of those weaknesses. Because he can't teach everything. He can't teach that combination of size, speed, and athleticism. And if Jackson can become more consistent in front of goal, he can actually be one of the most dangerous forwards in the squad. But then, Chelsea went and signed another striker. Delap is different, very different, because Delap is much closer to that traditional number 9. I mean, he's physical, he's aggressive, he's direct, he's comfortable battling with centre backs. He attacks the box, he can hold the ball up, and he gives Chelsea something they don't actually have with all these other people: a focal point. Sometimes you don't need your striker dropping into midfield. Sometimes you just need someone who can say, "Give me the ball," and he goes ahead and bully the defender. Delap actually gives you that. And that's why I think he's going to be incredibly interesting under Alonso. Because Chelsea are struggling to break down a deep defense. A player like Delap can completely change the way you attack. But again, there is another problem. Because Chelsea have signed another striker who is arguably even more physical: Emmanuel Emegha. And this is where things actually get very interesting because Emegha brings something completely different. Again, he's athletic. I mean, he's 6'5". He's powerful. He's extremely quick for his size. And he can threaten space behind the defensive line. Chelsea aren't just signing another striker. They're adding another weapon. Imagine Chelsea winning the ball in midfield. The opposition's defensive line is high. And Emegha starts running. That's the sign, the kind of situation his physical profile becomes very terrifying. But unlike João Pedro, Emegha isn't primarily there to dictate the attack. And unlike Delap, he's also not necessarily your classic target man. His biggest weapon is what happens when there is space, which makes him incredibly useful. But perhaps not the striker you want starting every game. And then again, there's a veteran, Welbeck. And honestly, this might be one of the smartest players Chelsea have in this entire group. Not because he's better than the others. He's not. But because he gives you something way, way, way more valuable. And what Chelsea has actually been hungry for years. Experience. He's been through everything. Premier League titles, European football, big games, pressure. And he knows how to play the position. He's also incredibly intelligent with his movements. And when you have a young squad full of talented players, having someone like Welbeck around can actually be very massive. But realistically, he's not going to be Chelsea's long-term number 9. He's the experienced option, the rotation player, the guy you bring on when you need intelligence, movement, and composure. And that brings us to the biggest question here. If you had to pick one, who actually starts? For me, it's João Pedro. And here's why. Chelsea don't just need someone who can score goals. I mean, he can score goals, but they need someone who can connect the attack and bring balance with the three man attack that Xabi Alonso is trying to implement with the 3-4-3 system. The striker actually has to be able to create for those players behind him. I mean, Palmer is going to create, but I feel like Morgan Rogers will be the one making those runs in behind. So yes, you do need a striker that can also create and score. So João Pedro will drop deep. He will combine with the midfield. He will create. He will drift into those different areas. And most of all, he can get into goal scoring positions. I mean, he has proved it this preseason, scoring more than 5 goals already. But I don't think this means the others become useless. Actually, I think Chelsea now have something they haven't had for a long time. Different solutions. If you need creativity, there's João Pedro. If you need pace and attacking depth, there's Jackson. If you need physicality and a focal point, there's Delap. If you need pure running power and space running, there's Emegha. But if you need that experience, there's Welbeck. So that's not necessarily a striker problem. That's a tactical toolbox. So now here's the real problem. This is why I think Chelsea should be very, very careful. You cannot have 5 strikers expecting to all be starters. Someone is going to be unhappy. Someone is going to lose minutes. Some of them will never develop properly. Someone is going to eventually start asking questions. And that's where squad management becomes incredibly important. Because Chelsea aren't just managing players, they are managing egos, development, and expectations. If you are João Pedro, you expect to start. If you are Jackson, you want to prove you're Chelsea's number 9. If you're Delap, you didn't come to Chelsea 2 seasons ago to sit on the bench. If you're Emegha, you're coming in with ambitions of becoming a big player one day. And if you're Welbeck, he's probably the only one who understands exactly what his role is at this stage of his career. So Xabi Alonso has a difficult job because sometimes the best team isn't the team with the best 11 players. It's the team with the best combination of players. Now, for me, my ranking is this. If I had to choose Chelsea strikers right now, my number 5 option would be Liam Delap. I really like what he brings. He's a completely different profile to the others. I mean, he's physical and he can hold up the ball. But he has shown a lot of inconsistencies that won't make me trust him. My number 4 option is going to be Nicolas Jackson. And this one will probably annoy everybody. But I do think that he has a very high ceiling. But he's actually the most sellable if you actually look at the players for who we can actually offload to accommodate the others. So yes, I do feel like Nicolas Jackson, due to his assets, he is the number 4 option here. My number 3 option is Danny Welbeck. This is because he's not a bad player, but he's simply the oldest and least likely to be a long-term starter. He is not going to ask for minutes. So he's going to bring that experience and also that useful backup for the team. So yes, he is a very, very good third choice striker. Then my number 2, Emmanuel Emegha. I mean, his potential is going to be very fascinating. But I need to see how he adapts to Chelsea's level before putting him at that number 1 spot. But I do know that if João Pedro is around that 70th minute of the game, the last 20 minutes is when the defense is tired. They need someone physical and huge. It's going to be difficult to mark from that physical standpoint of them being tired to come in and seal out the game. Then, of course, there's João Pedro, because I think he's the striker who gives Chelsea the most complete attacking package. He can score every type of goal. He can score outside the box. He can score headers. He can score bicycle kicks. He can score tappings. He can press. He can dribble. I mean, this guy can do everything. He can pass. So yeah, João Pedro is our starting striker. No question. But here's my real take. I don't actually think Chelsea's biggest problem is having five strikers. I think the real question is, can Xabi Alonso find a way to make all these different profiles useful? Because football isn't about having one perfect striker anymore. Sometimes you need a player who can create. Sometimes you need a player who can run. Sometimes you need someone who can bully defenders. Sometimes you need someone who can finish. And Chelsea now have all those options. The problem is only one of them can start, and some have to be on the bench, and one kept in reserve, and the other two moved on. So I'll leave it to you. If you were Xabi Alonso, who is your starting number 9? João Pedro, Nicolas Jackson, Delap, Emmanuel Emegha, or Danny Welbeck? And more importantly, who gets sold or loaned if Chelsea really do have too many strikers? Let me know in the comments, because this Chelsea striker battle is going to be very interesting. And as usual, like, comment, and subscribe. Cheers.